All right, so Loki premiered this week on the Disney Plus, and episode 1, glorious purpose, of course, because when we first meet Loki in the Avengers, he's talking about his glorious purpose, right? Directed by Kate Herron, who is the showrunner. Written by Michael Waldron, who is the writer of the Multiverse of Madness, if you did not know.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah. So this show's a little weird, right? It's 6 episodes, and they gave us with this episode essentially like a 0 issue of a comic book. They kind of set the table, and I feel like with the type of character that Loki is, and there were some high points in the episode for sure. It should have been Loki hopping around the multiverse just with the Tesseract from the get go, with Mobius and Mobius on his tail.
And honestly, when this series was first announced, that's pretty much what I thought it was going to be. At least part of it was. That's what I thought. I thought, okay, yeah, he has a Tesseract. He's going to be hopping all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Tesseract is out of his hands less than 60 seconds into
right,
a little bit more than that, because we do get, flashbacks to Avengers Endgame and how all that happened. But
yeah,
for the most part, it's out of his hands almost immediately at the start, within the first 2 minutes of the show.
Right. So, I like the look. I like the aesthetic of the show. I thought that was quite cool. I liked the banter between Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, and I don't know if I've told you this, but I'm a big Owen Wilson fan. I like I like everything he is, not everything, but I typically like watching things he's in, because I just like his brand of acting,
Mm-hmm.
And then Tom Hiddleston is just
Tom Hiddleston is great. Even in instances where I do get tired of the MCU making him such a kind of like almost like a bumbling type clown figure in certain instances. Tom Hiddleston's still great in those moments. Right. Tom Hiddleston is great in the serious moments he gets when he's basically, hey, Loki, this is your life. Looking, at the flashbacks of some of the more powerful scenes of what's happened in the MCU. I love that. I love the deep cut of, Loki being DB Cooper.
That was my favorite part of the entire episode, by the way. That was
awesome.
Great. And the whole reason for doing that was awesome.
Yeah, I lost a bet.
I lost a bet to my brother. Brother, yeah. Heimdall, be ready.
Yeah, and if people don't know, DB Cooper is a guy that hijacked a plane in the 60s. Yep. Parachuted out after getting the ransom money of $200,000, and he's never been found.
Never, yeah. So yeah, that was really, really quite good that they did it that way, for sure.
So another thing I did like was some of the bits of humor about the TVA, Time Variance Authority, and it was like DMV humor.
Yeah,
where it's like you're waiting in line for this stuff. Take a ticket.
Yeah,
like stuff like that. That I did like that. I thought that was pretty funny. You had the like you said, the Jurassic Park. You probably saying you shouldn't be here, and it gives you the spiel, kind of like they did in Thor Ragnarok on what Sakaar was.
Mm-hmm.
It had that type of humor to it. So I did appreciate that.
I did. Like I said, I liked the. I like that whole thing. Oh, I guess Michael Waldron is the showrunner. Okay, I got that backwards. Yeah, no, the Miss Minute thing was great, and the fact that it's Tara Strong's voice, I thought was pretty cool. She's a very prolific like cartoon actress. She was the voice of Batgirl, things like that. Yeah, so again, this is one that you're looking at and like you're really excited for. Like I've talked to a lot of people and like this is the one that they were most excited for coming in. And it didn't hit the ground running, right? That was the weird thing.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, the whole, and again, this is the first episode. We understand that. But like I like you when you said it's more like a zero issue. And in comics, that zero issue is kind of given a backstory that they don't want to necessarily have to deal with or take the time out of the full on story. So that's why they do these zero issues. And this absolutely felt like that, in the sense of we didn't get to what this show is about until the last 30 seconds of the episode.
Right.
And
there was just a bunch of sight gags, and then the whole point of the TVA, the Time Variance Agency, is that they're there to protect the sacred timeline. And to be honest, like they to me they did a lot of harm to any moment that made you feel anything during the first 22 episodes of the MCU.
I like that, 22 episodes.
I mean, it's a giant TV show.
Oh yeah. You said that before, and it's absolutely true.
And like there's no such thing as free will. Things are supposed to happen. Like when Loki is in front of what's her name? The judge. Just totally Ravonna Renslayer. That's a great name.
Sounds like something from Harry Potter,
right? When he's in front of her and he's like, "I'm not guilty. It's the Avengers. They're the ones who you should be after." And like I've said all along, the Avengers are the bad guys in that movie.
In which movie?
The Infinity War and Endgame.
Because of Thanos. Okay.
They're the bad. I mean, they're literally trying to keep the status quo, the establishment in place that is hurting people. And now is genocide the answer? Maybe not. But it's really just a snap at your fingers and it's all done. But the whole thing where he's like, no, the Avengers, and then the Judge Renslayer is like, no, that was supposed to happen. So, okay, they knew that was supposed to happen. The Avengers were supposed to go back and supposed to disrupt all of this stuff. Tony has that moment with his dad. That only happened because Loki got the Tesseract from the Avengers bumbling the mission. So wasn't that supposed to happen?
Yeah, and this is one of those things, and I told you before, I watched it before you, and I said there's one thing I really, really didn't like, and it was this whole, this is all predetermined.
Yeah.
Everything that happened because it's part of the timeline, and it's X, Y, and Z. Discussion, whatever.
It was like the whole the drawer full of Infinity Stones.
Yeah,
and
you're playing the Infinity Stones.
Most of them were Soul Stones.
I didn't notice. I didn't pay attention to that part.
Yeah, most of them were Soul Stones, which is like, how many people were lost to get that stone? Or how many loved ones were sacrificed to get that stone? But was that just predetermined? And you just, when you go fix it, you take that? You had told me that you were kind of upset that Loki got manhandled by a couple of humans. But then as I was thinking about that, these people aren't human because they can handle Infinity Stones without burning up.
Or is that because when the Infinity Stones are in this bubble of this TVA bubble, which again, these are primordial cosmic forces. I have a hard time. And again, maybe because it's the aesthetic of that, it looks human, like the TVA. Everything. There's a lot of stuff about the TVA that looks like I said, like something you would see at the DMV.
Right.
So, maybe, and again, I think we might get more about what the TVA truly is. And again, it was created by these three, to quote Loki, space lizards. So you're saying that they're more powerful than Celestials. They're more powerful than, Infinity Stones to be able to nullify this. There's a lot of unanswered questions, about the manhandling. And again, this is not just from this. A lot of times, these shows like this, they're not consistent with strength levels, endurance levels, all that stuff. And a lot of times things are written just to say, hey, we have to do this because reasons. And like I was telling you
'Cause
about
reasons,
the deceased,
yeah.
where like Black Adam changes back into his human form in the deceased comic line, and spoiler alert, because he does that, he gets infected. And it's like, why would he change back? Why, knowing what's going on, he changes into his vulnerable form, which again, I don't know enough about Black Adam, but like you said, would his form die because he's 5,000 plus years old or whatever?
Yeah.
So stuff like that is written into shows. It's convenience. It's a narrative convenience, and it's like one of those staples of fiction. But just kind of going back to that whole predetermined aspect, that's the one that's really really bugged me, because thinking back to Endgame, because I just watched Endgame not too long ago, or Infinity War, that really really bugged me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
here's hoping that these 5 episodes coming up will do a better job of explaining some of this. Maybe it's one long con, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that really stood out as one of those things that, despite some of the stuff I liked, that's a major, that takes away major points from this episode of the whole TVA aspect and how it just affects everything in MCU.
Well, and so like I had some questions, like maybe they are manipulating things and showing him other versions of events to manipulate Loki, because they show him Freya's death, and they say he's directly responsible for sending the Dark Elves up the path where she was, and that's what got her killed. Which is kind of heartbreaking if that's actually true and how that works. But at the same time, they show him his death, and this is a Loki from just post Avengers, where he was ripping out people's eyes and killing indiscriminately and all of that. One of the darker versions of Loki that we've had in the MCU, and he immediately becomes a mewling Quim, and it's weird, because it's like, all right, so we've had this character around for 10 years now, and we've got to see many different versions of Loki. I've been falling for a half hour straight, pissed off, pulling out knives to kill Doctor Strange. That's probably my favorite moment in all of Loki-ness. To stranding Odin in an old folks home, and killing, trying to kill Thor multiple times. But this version that we have, it is probably the most villainous version that we've seen, and they're toying with him.
Yeah, and he got to where he was at the beginning, at the end of Ragnarok, way too fast, considering it was another 5 years until he got to that point.
And part of the reason he got to where he was after Ragnarok was because of the Grand Master, and living in fear of the Grand Master, who is a celestial, who it doesn't matter if Loki is a god. And by the way, calling him Mr. Laufeyson was great, by the way. Because all of the promotional material was calling him Loki Odinson, and it's like, well, that's not true. Actually, as I push my glasses up to the bridge of my nose, actually, he was a frost giant. But it was. I really enjoyed that. I liked the little this is your life, or this could be your life version that they showed him. But then the big spoiler at the end is that they're hunting Loki, which was pretty obvious when they were talking about the knives and the girl pointed. And I saw people like, oh, are they going to show Mephisto? No, stop it. Mephisto's not Mephisto's not a thing. Jack Schaefer didn't know who Mephisto was until after WandaVision came out and people started talking about Mephisto, which again isn't a problem for me, like some other people had issue with. The fact that Jack Schaefer was able to put that little bit of a Easter egg in there without meaning to, I think is just kind of shows how good some of the storytelling was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. This is supposed to be setting up the multiverse of madness, and I'm afraid we're not going to get to see enough of the multiverse.
Yeah, it almost is will get kind of like, instead of most of that movie or a good portion of that movie being the multiverse, we might get about 10 minutes of it or something.
Right.
Again, we could be absolutely wrong,
Right,
but
right, right.
just going, and again, because this is only one episode, we're making a lot of assumptions and doing a lot of conjecture.
Well, and
I
what
do
do
have a
I
bunch.
always say about the pilot episode of a series?
You can't judge a series by the pilot
It's
episode.
usually the very worst episode of the series.
Yes.
So if this is as bad as it gets, we're in good shape.
Yeah.
I just think it's 6 episodes. Sorry, 6 episodes. There's not a lot of time. There's no prequel like comic book that comes from this. The other thing that kind of bothers me is the Daniel Kittlesmith is his name. It's based on one of his runs with the character Loki. Um, Kibblesmith,
Something
sorry.
like,
Yeah, and
yeah, the
so
God Who Fell to Earth. Or
yeah, the God
something
Who Fell to
along those.
Earth, and I mean it wasn't good. He's not a very good comic book writer. Um, so the fact that it's based off of that unfortunately, having that knowledge of comics really bothered me. He's the one who came up with the idea of Snowflake and space safe space for the New Warriors.
Seriously.
Yeah. So I
Oh,
purposely
jeez.
waited to tell you that when we got on the podcast.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah. All right. So let's just out of 5 infinity paperweights. What do you give it?
I give it a 3. There's a lot of there's some good stuff in this, but the biggest issue for me again is the whole predetermined timeline thing, which really soured me on this. I think I would have probably given it a 3.5 if not for that. I really love Tom Hiddleston. I like Owen Wilson. Yes, there's some predictability with this, but who knows? It could be. I'm curious to see which version of Loki and of himself he's going to fight. My conjecture was it's going to be the female version of him,
Yeah.
which again, that's comics, that's Norse mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Loki could turn into a woman. He's done it before. Like, I mean, Norse mythology. So I'm really curious to see where we go with this.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, this 3 out of 5.
Okay. I'm 2 out of 5. I just I was bored. The high points that were in there were good, but they did not outweigh the boredom.
Mm-hmm.
And they just like I don't know, like the only characters I cared about were Loki and Mobius. I don't care about the Hunters. I don't care about the TVA. I know even though Mobius is part of the TVA, like it's like okay, the sooner we can put that in our rearview mirror, especially that Hunter B-15, like she was just dreadful. I'm fine.